Hey, good morning, Patriots. It's good to be here. Good morning, and it's another great day in the USA. Still kind of trying to figure out what's going on with us. What's wrong with my hair this morning? I don't know what's going on with us in Iran. So, we're trying to figure that out as we go. I think everybody needs to be a little bit patient with President Trump on this. I know there's been a lot of dissent. I've got cats in here today, just saying. Let me say good morning. Good morning. Anyway, we'll be going through a number of headlines today, talking about current events. We got a special guest coming on to talk about the Oklahoma City bombing. It should be very interesting. And someone else who is very interesting is Chris Cordani. Good morning, Chris.
My teachers always described me as interesting when I was younger in elementary school. So I get that.
Well, we're all interesting. It's all a matter of degrees. Some people are interesting because they're insane. Other people are interesting because they're like talented, like our friend Cherie Curry and Taco. I can say Taco on the air. Can I say Taco? I guess
I think Taco. You can. That's the good Taco.
And then Jack Hughes from Wang Chung, talent.
Yes.
And then other people are interesting because they're like, Democrats who want to kill people. But that's neither here nor there. I don't want to talk about bloodthirsty Democrats. It's too early for that. We'll do that later after the Patriots had some time to wake up. So
that's right. Anyway. They all need their coffee. We all need our coffee. And
speaking of bloodthirsty, speaking of bloodthirsty dictators, let's talk about the Chinese.
There we go.
Yeah,
they're caught, and this is a big one because to be honest with you, our government, our FBI was covering this up.
Oh yeah, I have firsthand knowledge of this, as you all know. I live this nightmare, so let's go through it.
Well, let's hit it right now. Just the News had a great report on this. As always, John Solomon's on top of everything. He's on top of more things than Bill Clinton. Anyway, the FBI.
I think Bill Clinton is on top and on bottom. Just saying.
Right. There we go. Depends on which island he's on. But apparently, the new FBI, the Patel FBI, has finally given Congress intel it should have had a long time ago, as the Chinese tried to create fake mail-in ballots in 2020. Let me tell you something. I also believe that the Democrats who pushed this whole mail-in ballots thing, the COVID elections rules, knew that something like this could happen. That's why they always distracted you with Russia, when it was really real enemies like Russia's not our friend, but real enemies looking to subvert us, like China, were working behind the scenes to fix elections. China. Yeah. They weren't very nice to us in 2020, were they?
No, and not only were they not nice, they actually did things to upend the global markets by releasing COVID. That was not only us, that was the globe. A little thing called fentanyl was still in the pipeline, a weapon of mass destruction that's been coming up through the southwest border via Mexico and other places for, the better part of the last 7 years. So they're not our friends. But continue, Chris. Keep going. This is interesting.
And I have a cool friend who can talk more about this as the weeks go on too. So we're going to try to get her on. We're working on that behind the scenes, doing some.
It's not Rebecca Koffler, is it?
No, it's not. It's somebody. Let's put it this way: it's somebody from China. There we go.
Did you know that Rebecca Koffler
yesterday?
Did you know, Chris, that the deep state is now taken over alcoholic beverages and inflict them on people to make them think the deep state's interfering with them? Did you know that?
Oh, is that the case?
It's interesting. I think they put nanotechnology into containers of champagne, and when you drink it, it makes you go wacky. And that's the deep state. It's not the alcohol; it's the deep state. Just saying. But keep going.
There we go. Okay, that's fair enough. Anyway, according to this report, FBI Director Kash Patel, I'm reading this from Just the News, turned over to Congress an intelligence report raising concerns China have mass-produced fake U.S. driver's licenses to carry out a scheme to hijack the 2020 election with fake mail-in ballots for Democrat Joe Biden. The newly classified intelligence reports weren't corroborated or fully investigated, but they were recalled from intelligence agencies at about the time when Chris Wray testified there were no known plans of foreign interference ahead of the 2020 election. And we should probably go to the videotape on that one, because Let's put it this way. Chris Wray was a filthy liar from the beginning onward.
Christopher Wray was the Mr. Haney of law enforcement. If you remember Green Acres,
Mr. Haney.
he was with better hair.
Pulling one out of
Mr.
there.
Haney. Do we have Mr. Haney? Haney's a interesting character. He was kind of a marplot. I'm really mixing stuff up this morning. Marplot is a term for a 17th century do nothing, like someone who is a useless bureaucrat who just took up space. So anyway, Christopher Wray with his good hair was like a 21st century. There he is, Mr. Haney. Mr. Haney, that's right. He's like Mr. Haney, always trying to sell you something you didn't want. So I wonder if we got any B-roll for Mr. Haney. He's a good kind of double talker, and that's there he is.
We do have him from 2020 talking about
there he is
talking about Russia.
Oh, Wilbur, that's a different series. That's Mr. Ed.
Yes. Well, here we go.
The intelligence community's consensus is that Russia continues to try to influence our election.
Russia.
Primarily through what we would call malign foreign influence, as opposed to what we saw in 2016, where there was also an effort to target election infrastructure, cyber targeting. We have not seen that second part yet this year or this cycle, but we certainly have seen very active efforts by the Russians to influence our election in 2020 through what I would call more the malign foreign influence side of things.
Without evidence, by the way. He's saying all of this without evidence. Right.
Media use
I've got my friend Manny here today. Manny is you want to say good morning to the folks? He's just sniffing the microphone. So
there we go.
He's very talkative this morning. Yeah, he needs
his meow mix.
No, I'm sorry. I know Rebecca. She was drunk. Just saying, for the record. No, I sorry. No, I'm not playing any. Oh, she was just a little bit of this. No. But we'll get into that later. Anyway, back to Chris. So, did you hear that there was a sighting of his hair in Canada flying by itself without Ray? Just his hair. Just his hair just took off.
Well, that's because that's the new wig being shipped in for James Carney.
Yeah, that's true. He needs one.
That's right.
So, anyway, I just I want to make it clear that, as you all know, I did investigations of this issue. So one of the things that was happening, that I've never talked about this publicly that I recall, that I was handling a lot of whistleblowers in late November, early December of 2020, before January 6th. And so we were going through, and Chris, there were credible reports that I just didn't have time to follow up on, nor did we have the resources, because we were a private concern, just saying.
Yes.
Trying to figure this all out. And there were reports of the Chinese sending in plane loads of ballots that they were printed up in the CCP, back in the CCP. I think is it the Beatles do a song about that? No, that's back in the
USSR. Same thing though. Well, it's not the Russia. It's the USSR. That's the real. Those are the real guys. Yeah. Yes.
Those Moscow girls really got it going. Anyway, it's different era.
I wish they all could be. Leningrad girls or Stalingrad, whatever they call it now. St. Petersburg girls.
Yeah. They really know. Yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about the Beatles some other time. But my point being is that there are credible reports on this. Obviously, MSNBC and others reported saying that this was quote unquote dispelled, that there was no evidence of Chinese involvement. And this has been the popular media narrative, as if we'd never seen one, that, no, it was all Russia.
Right.
China didn't exist.
Right. No evidence, by the way, of Russia.
Go enjoy your General Zhao's chicken and shut up.
The Russia thing was also used without evidence. It was because Hillary Clinton said it, and that's where the media just flocked to it. Well, Hillary said it. It must be true.
Exactly. So I'd like to believe, since Kash Patel apparently released this to Congress, that's how this is all coming out, that there's going to be congressional hearings. Now, someone said in the chat earlier, I don't know who it was, I apologize, I'm trying to track chat and talk, which is, not always easy. But the answer is the question was, what if, Chris, they now prove that the 2020 election was fraudulent? Well, the answer is, I think we already know it is. If they can prove it, it changes nothing.
Right.
Trump
No, it's true. It
conceded,
changes absolutely nothing. It really doesn't.
Trump conceded, for better or for worse. I think he did what he thought was best at the time. He left under protest. It's like he didn't show up at the inauguration, which I think is the right answer. Joe Biden didn't win. I think there's ample evidence that Joe Biden couldn't have won a bingo game at a retirement home at this point.
Even if he had all the numbers, because he'd forget to put the chips on.
He'd be putting X's and O's on numbers. He. Let me tell you, folks, Joe Biden could not, unattended, win a bingo game at a retirement home. Am I right? Come on, Chris. Am I right about this?
No, not with the Jill there saying, Joey, you forgot the number here. No, don't put the
forgot
chip
the free
there.
space.
And what are you
You forgot the free
anyway?
space. Yeah. So I'm just telling you that he Trump did the right thing. So if this is proven, which I think it will be, we've got some time to prove it. We're going to come to find that the Democrats and China and several other organizations, a lot of the think tanks, CNAS, who else was there? There's a bunch of them. The Atlantic. All these folks conspired together with Chris Wray and who was that Attorney General that really kind of chewed me out? Oh yeah, Bill Barr.
That's right.
Billy Barr.
Right, and Merrick
I guess
was part of this as well. So
I wonder, Billy could have gone on the road with Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus as like a circus clown, but I that circus doesn't exist anymore, so I guess he's out of work.
Fair enough.
True.
The other issue is they always like to tell you. They always like to add the words "without evidence." The media does that when it comes to something on the Republican
especially
side or on the
PBS,
Trump side.
especially
Right.
PBS.
PBS, of course, yeah, and of course, their evidence generally is a Democrat or some kind of Marxist said this happened, so that's the truth. I mean, we can go back to Ramaphosa and this whole and they're covering for him in recent months, but we can talk about that another time. We've talked about that endlessly a couple weeks ago. However, well, I guess not endlessly because it ended, but you know where I'm going here. The idea is this evidence was actually in the FBI documentation. This was in this was within the intelligence agencies, and Congress was looking for this, asking for it for over over 3 years right now, or something something similar. And the Chris Wray and company refused to release it, or they covered it up. Right.
So this is an important point you make, Chris, and I'm glad you brought it up because they were holding this. They had already internally authenticated the Hunter Biden hard drive, and they said, "Oh no, that's we can't say a thing about the fact that it's not Russia collusion; it's real." They sat back and didn't do that. Both Chris Wray and Bill Barr sat back and didn't say a word. And I know for a fact because my friend Colonel Ron Scott brought that hard drive to them from his nephew Mac. John, what's his name? Mac, the Mac guy that Hunter Biden dropped it off to. So I know for a fact that the FBI had that thing 18 months before the election. 18 months.
Yeah, yes, I remember you
saying
that.
On that too.
Yes,
they said on that too.
Yep. Yes, you were talking about that before, and Bill Barr. For the record, you've said this before on this program and others. Barr told you to kind of keep it under the hat or not talk about it. So this guy was part of the cover up as well. You can't trust these deep staters no matter who they are. And there were too many of them around Donald Trump. This time he knows a little better. We're a lot better.
Well, so let's talk about that a little bit. So right now, the other thing I was going to say is if we get all this information out, which, John Solomon, God bless him. I know John, a good guy. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they continue to get information out. It means absolutely nothing if nobody goes to jail. It means nothing. So I'm here to go on the record, and if they won't do it, I will. If at some point there comes a time when they're hanging back and not doing their job, I think President Trump should look at the next wave of folks to come in because as much as I think they're doing some interesting things, I don't know everything. Obviously, I'm not in their shoes. With that said, I think we would all agree, Chris. I think you would agree. You need to hold people accountable. It can't be, oh yeah, they stole the election. Too bad. No, 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 no. It needs to be these guys showing up in federal orange jumpers, doing the perp walk into jail. So I hope the Patriots agree with me on that. You cannot afford to not hold people accountable for this level of sedition, bordering on treason. What do you think?
I agree. And keep in mind, these are the same people who threw lawyers in
Oh, yeah.
jail,
Oh, yeah.
just for representing President Trump.
Yep.
So keep that in mind. So if anybody's
Yep.
thinking, well, we don't want to see them go to jail, they wouldn't, blah, 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 blah. Now, they go to a Camp Cupcake anyway. But the fact is, they threw lawyers in jail for representing somebody. The same people that say everybody deserves representation in court. Apparently, Clause 83 says, except for the orange man.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So right now, I find it interesting that they're now screaming about, you can't lock your political rivals up. It's like, didn't you all just do that? I'm pretty sure that's what you spent the last 4 years doing, is trying to get Trump locked up permanently. It wasn't like, oh, we want to put him in jail a few years. The rhetoric was to put him in jail permanently. And yeah, Sean Lucas, Rudy is a friend of mine, and I saw Rudy go through. I actually worked with Commissioner. Oh my goodness, he just passed. Bernie Carrick. Bernie, God rest his soul. I worked with Bernie to try to help get evidence into the bar review of Rudy to show that he did not lie regarding the election interference. And I think that still needs to be revisited. I think Rudy was a great mayor. That's right, Chris, he was. And then I think we need to recognize that he was a sacrificial lamb, so to speak, on the altar of political expedient.
Oh, there was a
went
lot of
after him
hate.
and others.
There's a lot of leftist hate lingering against Rudy Giuliani as well. So keep that in mind. He beat the communist mayor of it was a second attempt, but he beat communist mayor David Dinkins, and that left a rough taste in a lot of these people's mouths because it was the first black mayor of New York, and he runs for re-election. All of a sudden, the racist New Yorkers were mean and voted for, as Lynn Samuels, a talk show host, put it on WABC. She always called Giuliani Adolf Giuliani. So these people have a long grudge, not dissimilar to the grudge the leftists have against Donald Trump, because it was supposed to be Hillary's turn to be president, and he beat her. This is the root of that grudge. They beat Giuliani beats the first black mayor of New York, and of course the left's dreams of the first woman president and being able to take the moral high ground about that were shattered. Not because really of Donald Trump, it's because of who they nominated.
Yeah, let me say something, because I had a county commissioner meeting last night, and there are people here are very unhappy with me. Can you imagine that? Me? People are unhappy with that?
Hey, you pointed out
not my side. The other side. The other side's really upset with me. And I'll just say this: they were implying that I'm a racist, or we were racist because we took a certain vote a certain way. And it's what's interesting is that, and I'll just say this because it's interesting, and people should note it. 2 white women showed up to call the commissioners. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of us, right? 2, 4, 6, 7 of us.
You got elected. I didn't.
I barely got elected. No. And so
really
what's interesting. No. This is important. And I hope the local reporters are watching this, since they don't seem to pay attention to much except their own agenda. The commission took a vote, and it was 7-0. And we have 2 Democrats who were black. They happen to be black, and we took the vote together. And yet these 2 white women, I'll be polite. I'm going to be polite here. Showed up to complain about us being racist.
Of course, you're racist, and the fact
what? It's like, did you not notice that there's like minorities on. So I'm offended. I'm offended that you would have that level of liberal privilege. This right here, Chris, this is white privilege, where you have white liberal women showing up to complain about a vote taken by a group that contained black people. And since they didn't agree with the vote, oh, you're all racist. Even the black people are racist. How is that possible? Can someone tell me how it's possible to be called a racist if you make a decision based on merit? I don't know. Maybe
merit
maybe
is
I'm missing
white
something.
supremacy. Didn't you know that already? Merit
I
is white
guess so.
supremacy. Being on time is white supremacy. I think this was in the Smithsonian. Was it the Smithsonian or somebody listed these whole? There's a whole list of what's white supremacy: punctuality, punctuation, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, or being good at math, performing well at work.
No.
Merit.
I
Yeah.
got to correct you there, Chris. I don't know if you heard the news, and maybe the
Uh-oh.
Patriots have. Did you know that they've debunked algebra? It's really all fake. They've debunked
It
algebra.
is.
For the record.
Yeah. They debunked. How did they debunk algebra?
I don't know. They told me it's true. I don't know. I just heard this on the internet. It must be true, right?
Stupid Common Core math. The funny thing, you bring up your situation over there, and from what I'm gathering, I don't live where you are, but from what and it happens here too. It happens everywhere. There are people who take office and ignore the idea that they're serving an entire public, but they're trying to
Yeah.
push their own activism through public
Exactly.
service, through the public
Bingo.
sector. Right.
Bingo. You weren't
No-
even in the meeting, and that's the issue. Yeah,
Right.
there.
And this is what happens. You use you try to put certain books in the library and take certain things out so people don't have to read them. Look, your activism is nice when it comes to marching and bringing up something during a meeting, but let's remember that you're a public servant instead of an activist when you actually take office and have to do the job. Something
Yeah.
the mayor of Chicago doesn't know, by the way, who decided to push his activism and
Yeah.
once again grant or set up grants only to blacks for as a response to slavery reparations, if you will.
Our way will bring to black residents in reclaiming ownership of our own communities. That is the spirit of Juneteenth, you all.
You all.
It
Huh?
is about
What was he?
You all.
Southern now?
reflecting on our past.
Oh, Southern Chicago.
Other cultures are
we
taught to
like
never forget. We need to be reminded as blacks here in Chicago and America, remembering our past and working towards a more just future.
This rich guy who is all neatly groomed and everything. Yeah,
Why
I
is his
suppose he
head
suffered
pointed?
from slavery. He got rich off of the idea of reparations and slavery. This is the truth. He got rich off of other people's suffering. This guy right here.
Of course. Yeah. That's what they do. It's a Democrat tradition.
That's right. And
Investing in black is not a criminal act.
No, it's a racist act.
right. And, well, only he's done this. His idea is only giving these grants to blacks rather than
Exactly.
equally handing them out.
Exactly.
If you want to give black businesses a leg up, there are ways you can do that through grants, and that's fair enough because that's
Sean,
something
look,
a little
this
different.
guy is a racist. I'll just say
Right.
he's a racist.
Right. I mean, if you can say inner city grants are important to start businesses there, that's fine because you can actually dole those out to people who are of different races and colors too. That includes white. So
Yeah.
that's something that can be worked out. That's an economic issue. This is just solely because he wants to pat himself on the back and push the reparations issue, whereas he's not representing everybody in Chicago. He is
So-
representing his own.
Yeah, let me
activist
hit this a
interests.
little bit. This whole reparations thing. It's like, Chris, let's speak hypothetically so we can do an illustration.
Okay.
So if you, Chris, were born a slave, if you were, just saying, if you were, and you lived your life being a slave and you were freed one day, then I can halfway imagine the Democrat Party paying you reparations since the Democrats were the ones who held slaves. Just saying. I just want to be clear on which party supported slavery and which party freed the slaves. Last time I checked, Chris, the Democrat Party opposed the Republican Party. The Republican Party formed around the premise that all men are created equal and we had to free the slaves. I'm Republican. Just saying. There's a reason I signed up to be a Republican. It wasn't like I just wandered in one day and they had a special on Republican t-shirts. Just saying. So, but if you were a slave, I could see see that. But at this point, Chris, do you know of any single individual, anybody, who was a slave, who was actually a slave, not a son of a slave, not someone who thought they ran into a slave one day, not someone whose fourth cousin, fifth removed from the roommate they had in college was a slave? Is there anybody you know that is a slave that should be given reparations? Anybody? And you two Patriots, do you know anybody? Otherwise, if you don't, then knock it off.
Exactly. But this is all about grandstanding, keeping power, and using other people's suffering for personal gain. Now,
Exactly.
you remember us sitting here thinking, well, it's a good thing they're getting rid of Mayor Lightfoot, because I don't think that the Chicago voters could elect somebody worse than Lightfoot. Well, we were wrong, dadgummit. We were wrong.
But Chris, and the Patriots too. Why is his head pointed? Is there like a birth defect that made his head pointy? Because he's always got this point. It's like My Favorite Martian. Maybe he's got little antennas that come up too. Remember that? My Favorite Martian.
That was a good show, by the way.
That was a great show.
Hey,
Bill Bixby and Ray Walton.
And Mr. Hand from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
That's right.
Yeah, don't mess with him, or else
Mr.
when you
Spicoli.
order pizza in his class.
Mr. Spicoli, yes.
Yeah, and Spicoli. Did you see Spicoli on Bill Maher's show? Oh, I don't think I'd Donald Trump.
No.
Yeah, he's the guy that hung out with Chavez and Fidel Castro, talking about how wonderful they were. Hey, that speaking of that, there was a time when Sean Penn, the time after Sean Penn went to Castro's place and partied with him and came back with such wonderful things about him, Maria Conchita Alonso saw him, the actress, who was Cuban, by the way, saw him in an airport and chewed him out. And I was like, yeah, I became a fan of hers real fast.
Yeah, that's good. By the way, his best line ever was, "You dick." So that's,
hey, he ordered the pizza.
Famous.
Right.
Great acting there. Yeah, great acting.
He ordered.
So back to so is Sean Penn's head pointed as well? I don't look that close. I don't look at, I mean, Brandon. There's a clue. Let's go, Brandon. Right, Brandon.
That's right, Brandon.
He's got the pointed head.
Anytime a Democrat tries to make a point, I always tell them, hey, you have a point, but it's at the top of your head.
Yeah, and in his case, it's true.
That's right.
So
okay, I'm kidding around about that.
Anyway, so I think we all agree, and the Patriots agree, reparations needs to just go away. And Brandon Johnson is a racist. The idea here is that we are, as Martin Luther King, we should all be judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. Correct? I think he said that. I know he meant it. And I think that's what should be the standard. So,
and unfortunately, that's what got him killed. And that's also the truth.
Well, because Democrats.
Right.
Democrats.
Well, here, before we get to our guest, and we have a very special guest, Kathy Sanders, today. We're going to talk about the Oklahoma City bombing. I did want to get to Trump at the G7 because he did get up and leave to handle the Iran-Israeli thing, but he called out
on Wake Up America on Newsmax. Yes.
The real highlight was he was calling out the globalists. He's not afraid to say to these people's faces and not be politically correct about it. You guys are going in the wrong direction.
I look forward to that. The G7 used to be the G8. Barack Obama and a person named
Obama
didn't want to have Russia in, then I would say that was a mistake, because I think you wouldn't have a war right now if you had Russia in, and you wouldn't have a war right now if Trump were president.
Good for him calling them out
years ago.
He has to.
It didn't work out that way, but it used to be the G8, and now it's, I guess, what's that? 8 years ago, it switched over. They threw Russia out, which I claimed was a very big mistake. Even though I wasn't in politics then, I was very loud about it. It was a mistake in that you spend so much time talking about Russia, and he's no longer at the table. So it makes life more complicated.
And that's true. Look, they're a huge economy. Like the guy or not, nobody thinks of Vladimir Putin is, quote unquote, a good guy. But you need to have him at the table when it comes to coexisting as the top economies in the world. And that's the truth.
Yeah, I mean, let me cover this because I just want to be clear for the Patriots. I'm not pro-Russian. I spent most of my career as an operative working against the Russians. It was during the Cold War, and we won. President Reagan and his team understood some things that they had to do to collapse the Russian Empire. Afghanistan was part of it. SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative, was part of it. Some pretty brilliant, use of the Pope. Remember John Paul? Man, oh man, he and Lech Walesa stirring up trouble in the Warsaw Pact in Poland. God bless him. So there was some really good chess moves made that helped us win. Fast forward, the Russians aren't our enemies. They are not our friends necessarily, but they're not our enemies. And there's bigger fish that need to be fried right now that need to be focused on, like loose nukes, nuclear weapons, kind of floating around the world tend to not be a good thing. Just saying. Now, I've done some study on this. That's one of the things I've spent some time doing. So we need to. President Trump right now is, I think, trying to get a handle about how to prevent any nuclear weapon being allowed to go off anywhere. So I think that is a good focus. By the way, did you know that Zelensky, the Green Goblin, was upset that President Trump left the G7 because they were supposed to have an important meeting with urgency? Did you know that?
Oh, he was going to beg for money again. I think we know how that works.
Of course.
Maybe
Of course.
that's why he left. Maybe it wasn't just Iran. He could have just said, "Oh, all right, I can meet with Zelensky, then handle Iran. Oh, Iran, Israel. Nah, you know what? Got to handle this. Sorry, you talk to Carney. Take care of my light work, Carney."
Yeah, he should have left his room key and the key to the mini bar in his room. Said, go enjoy yourself in my room. Get as drunk as you want on me.
Oh, well, maybe he can do some interviews with you.
Enjoy the mini bar. I'll pick up the tab.
Let's bring in, and this 2025 is the 30th anniversary, I believe, of the Oklahoma City bombing this year. And there was a lady who is our guest right now, Kathy Sanders, who unfortunately lost two grandsons during this bombing. There were a lot of questions surrounding it. They came up with Timothy McVeigh pretty quickly, as far as the guy who did it. But there are a lot of questions surrounding that. And Ms. Sanders here, who was our guest on Wake Up Patriots, has spent a lot of time looking for the truth. So welcome to Wake Up Patriots, Kathy.
Good morning, Kathy.
Good morning. It's good to be here with you.
Good. So, Chris, do you have the cover of the book you want to put up? Kathy, why don't you tell us a little bit about the book and what you've been researching and why it's important to you?
Okay, I lost both of my grandchildren in the Oklahoma City bombing 30 years ago. And just within weeks of the bombing, I began to ask questions. I've been investigating for 30 years, and
Wow.
I've taken my investigative materials and I've put together my book, Shadows of Conspiracy, the untold story of the Oklahoma City bombing. And it tells the story of the bombing the way I believe it happened, based on the evidence that I have. And I've put much of the evidence of the book, much of my evidence in the book. And it's an impelling story for people who care about the truth. And I'm just trying to get in the real story down for the sake of American history, because the real story has not been told. You know, there were 22 eyewitnesses that saw McVeigh downtown the morning of the bombing, and not one saw him alone. Many of them described the same dark-skinned man with the tattoo on his right arm and the ball cap.
Well, let's take a step back and set up the foundation for what you're saying. So,
sure.
So first off, there's been a number of revelations, not only in your issue, but, I'm a 9/11 whistleblower. We still have issues that are not resolved from the 9/11 issue, which we've been working with Tucker Carlson and PBD and some others to get more information out on that. The JFK assassination, the Gulf of Tonkin. There's like a series of events in American history which I think were formed around a narrative, not the facts. Would you agree with me on that? That there's a number of things that they're narrative based, not fact based?
I would agree. Yes.
So I think this is where you come in. So I know that the Timothy McVeigh issue has been something of a mystery, and there's been credible reports, and I'll let you kind of explain everything you've found here. But the Timothy McVeigh thing was interesting because one of the co-conspirators is still in jail.
That's right.
And he's going to be in jail for the rest of his life. But I would argue that guy's never come clean or maybe he cut a deal to not come clean, where they promised him, if you just shut your mouth, we'll let you live, but you can't say anything, because I think he knows a lot more than what he's letting on. Do you think that's true?
Oh, I do. But I have been in to visit with Terry Nichols. I talked to him for years, and 10 years after the bombing, he told me when he's no longer under the threat of a death penalty, he would tell me everything. So 60 Minutes wanted to do an interview with him, just like they had done with Timothy McVeigh. The problem was the only way Terry would agree to do the interview was if I conducted it.
Good.
And so 60 Minutes was going to do something they'd never done before. I was going to go into that maximum security prison there in Colorado, interview Nichols, and then come out, and Ed Bradley was going to interview me. Well, we wrangled with the prison, 60 Minutes and I, for a year and a half, and they refused to let me go, even though and they wouldn't let 60 Minutes in either, even though I met the criteria as a 60 Minutes correspondent. And I have the letter where the warden deems me a security threat to the inmates, to the staff, and to the public at large. So Terry is just fed up because we've tried for a year and a half to make that happen. And he tells me, you go to New York on this date and you tell 60 Minutes, I'm going to call and I'm going to tell you everything. He was going to give me his 2 15-minute phone calls, which is all he gets a month, which would be very precious to an inmate. And he was going to use both of his phone calls on that day to tell me the full story and what really happened. Well, as it turned out, while I'm on the set, Ed Bradley passes away, and they shut down the set, and I'm sent home. And I'm like devastated because I was going to get my truth. And then it's like, well, it's okay. He's still going to be calling me and let me know what happened. Well, he never called. 2 days later, Terry's mother calls me and says, Terry wanted you to know that on the day he was to call you, he was notified by the warden you were taken off his calling list. So I haven't talked to the man since, but I'd been talking to him for 10 years. Why would the warden care what Terry Nichols had to say? Well, I don't think he would, but I think somebody would.
Yeah, somebody may have gotten.
Let's break that down. So what did they say you were a threat? How did they say you were a threat? That I don't get that. I mean, you don't look like a threatening person.
Well, I have had a speeding ticket that.
Oh, yeah, so have I.
That's the extent of my. I don't know. I've got the letter downstairs from the warden, and he just said in his best sound correctional judgment that to allow me to come into the prison, I would be a threat to the prisoners, to the staff, and to the public at large. I have no idea how I could have possibly.
So is there now let me ask this question, because I know that there's often an appeal process. Have you considered, is there an appeal process to this? Because this is, to me, government cover-up stuff right here. This is like this is cover-up.
Well, someone shut it down, and I don't know. I don't think it was the warden, but someone higher up did. And I don't have a case against them, so I don't know how I would have an appeal process.
Well, to me, anytime that you have that level of false accusation, to me, that's a false accusation. It's like, unless they can point to some event. I mean, I've gone through this in other government programs. The government's really good about making innuendo, and because they say it, it's official, it sticks. And they just, as you know, they went after Tulsi Gabbard via TSA. It's like, I know Tulsi personally. It's like, she's no threat. And yet somehow, because of some allegation, she was put on this watch list. So I've got a real problem whenever there's an allegation by the government that disabuses or limits a citizen's right to have access to people. And it sounds like here, this is part of that. So back to Terry Nichols real quick. Do you think you're going to find a way to get back to him and have contact and discuss this? Because he seems like he's pretty important to getting to the bottom of what happened. Well,
trust me, if there was a way in the last 30 years, I would have done it. There is so much to talk about in such a short amount of time. I began to have questions after the bombing. when one of the young mothers that her son died in the daycare, she told me she had seen the bomb squad downtown before the bomb went off. I
Yeah.
didn't believe her. Went to the fire chief and he said, "Oh, no, that's not true. We weren't down there." Well, then I found a whole office full of people who had been watching the bomb squad in the alleyway. And it wasn't just the bomb disposal truck, it was the bomb disposal unit being pulled on the back of a trailer. That was the beginning of my investigation. And I probably could have let that drop, except when they killed off John Doe #2, the largest manhunt in American history. All of a sudden, the FBI says, "Oh, it was just a mistake." But there were 22 eyewitnesses that saw him downtown. And like I said before, they described the same man. I went to Stephen Jones, McVeigh's defense attorney, and I said, "Look, if you're wanting to point the finger at someone else, I'll help you," because I wanted everybody involved in the bombing. And I was a real asset to Stephen Jones because no one wanted to help McVeigh. And when his investigators would go talk to people in Oklahoma City, they would just shut down, but they would talk to me because I was a victim. But that relationship gained me access to all of the material that the Jones team had. I learned about Carol Howe, the ATF informant. I have copies of her files. She was working at Elohim City on the Oklahoma-Arkansas border. In her files, she tells her ATF handler that beginning in December of '94, 4 months before the bombing in April of '95, that these people were taking trips to Oklahoma. She accompanied them, and one of the buildings they were targeting that they planned to blow up was the federal building in Oklahoma City. Then I got a hold of McVeigh's phone records. McVeigh called Elohim City 2 weeks before the bombing, 2 minutes after calling the Ryder Truck Rental Company. It's like there's a connection there. And then when I found the speeding ticket that McVeigh got, they're in Muldrow, Oklahoma, very close vicinity of Elohim City. I mean, here's a kid from New York. What's he doing out there? One of the people that Carol Howe said went with her to scout out buildings to blow up was a fellow by the name of Andreas Strassmeyer. When McVeigh called Elohim City, he asked to speak to Strassmeyer. The FBI talked to hundreds of people in connection with Timothy McVeigh, including his third grade school teacher, but they never found it necessary to interview Andreas Strassmeyer. He left the country and never has returned. Who was he?
Yeah.
I'd like to know. He was being protected by someone. I don't know if he was CIA. I don't know if he was working for the German government, but he certainly was being protective.
So that's part of what I've seen as well in my own experience regarding government investigations. I from my own experience in something called Able Danger, we who are witnesses actually provided the government a detailed list of people they could go talk to verify what we had said, our protected disclosures. And the government did two things. Either they went and visited with people and asked the wrong question purposely, refused to ask the right questions. That was a tactic. It's like, oh yeah, we talked to them. They had no idea what we were talking, anything about what you said. It's like, yeah, we talked to them later. It's like we weren't asked the right questions. They didn't ask us about the allegation, or they refused to go see them. And that sounds like the latter here. So,
Yeah.
So Kathy, this is all interesting. So I know, and by the way, we're happy to have you back at some point to continue the discussion.
I would love to come back.
So I don't think we should break it down a little bit more, but so at this point, regarding your research, was Timothy McVeigh a patsy, or was he really involved? How was that core team organized? Was it they really were the ones who did it, or they had people kind of help push them into it? What's your assessment of how that actually happened the day of the attack?
Well, I think Timothy McVeigh obviously wanted credit for it. Stephen Jones says that he talked to McVeigh and he said, Tim, I think you're lying to me about the others being involved. And Tim said, well, what difference would it make to my case if I told you who the others were? And Jones said, he regrettably said, well, I don't know, it probably wouldn't. And so McVeigh shut up and never said anything. McVeigh had been given a lie detector test by the Jones team.
Yeah.
And it was shown that he was being deceitful when he was asked, were other people involved in the bombing? There clearly were other people involved in the bombing. For instance, Timothy McVeigh's sister, she cut a deal with the prosecution. She ratted out on her brother. Most people don't even realize that. But in her confession, she says that she was laundering $100 bills that her brother told her came from bank robberies. You know, here's Tim. He's a guy that's traveling the country for 2 years, doesn't have a job, but he's got money to stay places. He's got money for food. Where's he getting that money?
Who's supplying that? Yeah.
Well, enter the Midwest bank robbers. That was what the FBI had dubbed them. And they were this group of bank robbers throughout the Midwest. They were pulling off these bank robberies, and they were using the money to fund terrorist activities. And guess where these bank robbers happened to be staying? Elohim City, the very place the ATF informant warned them, these people are planning a bombing. And it gets...
So
go ahead.
Let me hit that a little bit. So informers, I'm a military case officer. We deal with, we call them assets, but informers are the same thing. And one of the things we do with our assets is we vet them. We try to figure out how truthful are they. Is their information reliable? If it's reliable, can we ask them to do things for us? So my concern always dealing with the FBI, and I've been undercover with the FBI 3 times, just saying. So it's not like I don't know what these people do, how they operate. I've been undercover with them in Greece, working against a terrorist organization there. In Afghanistan, they worked with me on a number of things. And then in a place called Marshall, Texas, monitoring the Soviets back in the day. So the FBI I worked with doesn't seem to be the one that has been doing these evil things. So do you believe that these informers were actively being tasked by the FBI to do certain things, or do you think they were on the up and up based on what you've been told?
I believe Carol Howe was on the up and up. I met with her several times, and she was scared. She was scared of the people at Elohim City that she had ratted out on, and she was scared of the federal government. You know, and not that this has anything to do with it, but I find it odd that 3 or 4 weeks ago, Carol Howe was found mysteriously dead in her house. There's an ongoing investigation about that. And I don't know if there's any connection to that or not. But Carol was legitimate. What happened there, she was doing these fabulous reports and turning in this information, and her handler was new. She was just filing the information. No action was ever taken. So I think that they kind of blew it in that. I think they blew it. They didn't follow up on the information that she had given.
Well, Kathy, I think they don't follow up on things that may result in information they don't want to include. And that's my experience dealing with these sorts of things. So we're limited on time, but we would like to have you back. Chris, be sure to put her back in the queue. But let's accept, let me speak lawyerese. Let's accept the premise of your book is correct. What should be done next? What would be the 3 things you think should be done to either do a new investigation? You just tell us what you think should be done next regarding this whole issue.
Well, I would like to see the truth exposed. You know, I'm not sure how.
And how would you do that? Would it be a new investigation?
The way I did it was write a book. I've been beating this drum.
Right, I understand, but
song.
But obviously, what do you think Donald Trump should take notice of this and actually call for a new investigation of people he appoints to do it?
Well, that would be nice. I've been trying for years. I didn't tell you about, and I don't know if time allows this or not.
Open it up, sure.
But, okay, Danny Coulson, FBI agent. He worked the case at Ruby Ridge. He worked Waco, high profile guy, was called in after the bombing to lead the bombing investigation. So I found out 10 years later that he retired, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe he'll talk to me. So I called him up, and he said he would talk to me. I loaded up all the investigative materials that I have, and I drove to Dallas, Texas, and I met him at the Motel 6. When he came to the door, I opened it and I began to talk. Danny, why didn't you all interview Andreas Strassmeyer? And he's looking at me like he doesn't know who that is. And so I began to explain that McVeigh had called him and that Strassmeyer had gone with Carol Howe. And I pulled out the forms, Carol Howe's reports to the ATF. I pull out the information I have about the Midwest bank robbers. I wanted to know who those men were with McVeigh at the Dreamland. McVeigh drove from the Dreamland to the Murrah building with the truck and with the bomb in the back of the truck and blew it up. You know, why didn't the FBI ever identify who these were? Colson, I could see, was getting visibly shaken, and he said, Kathy, this all makes sense now. And I said, what makes sense? And he said, well, I was called in after the bombing because the FBI called in its finest to head this case up. And he said, within just a few weeks, I was put on leave with pay. He said, if you're put on leave with pay, you don't have to be told why. And he said, I remained on leave with pay for the last 10 years until I retired.
Wow.
And he told me, you need to
I know that's true. They do that, by the way. I've heard that happened too.
He said, you need to get a congressional investigation into this. That's the only thing that's going to help. And I tried, but before I could get to Nichols, I don't know, whoever contacted him, the FBI or whoever contacted him about the congressional investigation, Nichols didn't trust him. If I could have talked to Nichols first, I could have gotten him to agree and that he would have done this. But he didn't trust him and he turned it down. So we never had our congressional investigation. But before Danny left my room that day, he said, Kathy, aren't you scared? And I said, well, I don't know. Who should I be scared of? And he said, the people you could get incarcerated and possibly even executed. And I said, no, I'm not that smart. I'm just doing what I believe is the right thing to do. In my book, Shadows of a Conspiracy, it tells the great links in some hair-raising stories about my trip to the Aryan nations, where I was told by Pastor Richard Butler, he told me one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter, and that McVeigh was a great man and a martyr for the cause. He told me he cried when he saw my little Aryan grandchildren on TV. I went to Elohim City. I met with Carol Howe. I've met all the players in here. I've been doing this for 30 years. And my book just kind of brings it to a head. Maybe it'll cause someone to take notice and want to do the right thing.
Well, I think the whole idea of revenge, Ruby Ridge being, as a matter of fact, Kathy, I'd like to have you come back and talk a little bit about the context of what you're saying right now, because I think that there were a number of things going on during that period. Ruby Ridge, supposedly Timothy McVeigh, correct me if I'm wrong, Timothy McVeigh said he did the attack because of Ruby Ridge, right? I think it was like to the day that happened. Is that
was one of the response? Yeah, that was one of the reasons.
He was influenced by Ruby Ridge and by Waco. He was there at Waco. He watched the military tanks convene on American citizens, and he thought it was wrong. McVeigh had some good points, but the way he executed it was terribly wrong.
I agree, but I think we should explore some of this, because I think clearly there was indications that he and others, to your point, conspiracy, all felt this way. And I would argue, with the complexity of what you're talking about, there was probably more evidence than they wanted to have come out. And I think, I guess my last set of questions has to do with, what do you think still exists of the conspiracy regarding the people who perpetrated this? Do you think that they exist, and what happened to those folks who basically were outside the scope of the investigation?
Well, I don't know. The Midwest bank robbers were picked up around the country and they were charged with other crimes and they were put away. We didn't talk about Stephen Colburn, which the defense and the prosecution admitted that Timothy McVeigh left a note for him on a power pole outside a cave that he was living in Kingman, Arizona. And Colburn was a biochemist with a degree from Oxnard. McVeigh left him a note that said it was a call for action. We need to do something now. Colburn would have surely had the technology and the ability to build the bomb that was McVeigh and Nichols did. There's just so many things that lead back that 2 + 2 = 4, and the facts of this case don't add up. There's many more people involved. And what I believe, I have the ATF payroll records of agents that were brought in the night before the bombing. And I believe that they had information the building would be blown up in the wee hours of the night. When no one came to blow up the building is when they called in the bomb squad then that morning and let everybody go in. They didn't tell them that it was a dangerous day. I think after Ruby Ridge and after Waco, they wanted to ride in like John Wayne on a big white horse and save the day. And their operation got out of hand and 168 people died.
Well, so to that point, the 93 World Trade Center bombers did the same thing. They got out of hand and actually happened. The FBI had assets in with the Blind Sheik, and it happened. Same thing with 9/11. A lot of people believe that CIA and FBI, and I don't want to get into there's a third investigative organization that has information. I'll let them speak for themselves very soon. That indicates that the CIA and FBI both thought they had control of the 9/11 hijackers. So we'll leave it at that. But to me, Kathy, these people believe that I believe that there's people thinking, oh yeah, we can set this up and get a win for the team. I believe they were probably duped into letting it happen. I think a lot of these guys thought maybe, oh yeah, we're going to catch him and stop him. And at the last minute, they were prevented from stopping it. And let me cite something. I'm not belittling what you're saying at all. Please don't take my next comment as such. But I think there's a great fictional representation that kind of captures the spirit of this, which is the X-Files Fight the Future. There's a scene in there where a federal building was targeted to destroy certain evidence of certain crimes. So I think that there's certain things that the government has always tried to cover up, that they're always looking to angle individuals who may be well-meaning, but dupes them into doing something against the interest of the government. So I think that's what we're looking at here is that, I think it's very possible what you're saying is absolutely correct.
Well, and I didn't do a lot of speculation. I based my book on hardcore evidence. And I just took the bones of my evidence and I painted a picture, and it's a compelling read. But that story in my book, Shadows of Conspiracy, is much closer to the truth than the one the American people have been given.
Well, good. Well, we should, again, have you back. And I'd like to start from, excuse me, some of your personal perspective on how obviously, I apologize. My condolences to your lost family members, your nephews. Is that what it was?
No, it was my grandchildren. They lived in my home. They had the room next to me. They lived in my home. They were more than grandchildren.
Well, my condolences for that, and we should talk about that more. And obviously, we'll have you back to talk about the more details about where this all could go and what we should do. But suffice it to say, I think a lot of us agree we need to look at how we can do things better regarding getting the truth out. And I think everybody would agree on that.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I think if people read the book, they'll be outraged.
Once again, the book is
check it out. Shadows of Conspiracy. Kathy Sanders. I think you ought to go out and get it. And Kathy, again, we'll have you back. Chris, be sure to have her back so we can continue this discussion sometime soon.
Yeah, we'll do that. I have an in, so we'll definitely we'll definitely do that. Don't forget, tomorrow we have Lord Conrad Black, and he'll be with us this time. He had a
Finally.
doggy emergency last week.
Oh, good. Well, we'll do that tomorrow. All right.
Yes.
Well, Patriots, thanks for being here. This is a great show. We appreciate you guys chiming in and having discussions with us. Kathy, thank you for being here and sharing your story. Check out her book, Shadows of Conspiracy. A lot more there than I think we can talk about in just a half an hour. We'll have her back to talk in more detail. And obviously, we have a lot of interest in getting the truth out to you, Patriots. Until then, we'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.